This morning, as we continue our series on the book of Ezekiel, we have somewhat of an ominous title: Welcome to the Pit of Despair. And throughout this book, throughout this study of the book of Ezekiel, we've been talking about getting strength for troubled times. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes in my life, not so much today on my birthday, but sometimes in life we're going through troubled times. Amen? You've been there, and if you're not there today, you were there yesterday, and if you're not there today or tomorrow, you will be in the future. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart because I have overcome the world. So even though this title may sound a little depressing, the message is anything but. We're going to look at the story of the Valley of Dry Bones in Ezekiel 37, perhaps the most famous story in the entire book of Ezekiel. But before that, because I'm a huge Princess Bride fan, anybody love the movie The Princess Bride? First, before we go any further, we want to welcome you to the pit of despair. And even though we're not literally in that pit of despair, there are times, if we're really honest with ourselves, there are times where we proverbially feel like we're in a pit of despair. There are times when we need a resurrection of hope in our lives. There are times when we struggle with hopelessness, and we need a strong dose of new hope to get us going again. And that leads to our big question this morning. At those times when we feel like we're in the pit of despair, when things are going against us, when circumstances are out of our control, when life is spiraling into great difficulty and we just feel like everything's going down the drain, the question is, read the question out loud with me, is there hope? Is there hope? And we're going to look at Ezekiel chapter 37 this morning, verses 1 to 14, because we need to get an answer to this very important question. So, starting at the beginning of Ezekiel chapter 37, it says, "The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley." So Ezekiel here is having another vision. He has several visions throughout the book of Ezekiel, and in this one the Lord is giving him a very special vision. The Spirit of the Lord is taking him into a valley, but not just any valley. This is not a valley with lush greenery. This is not a valley where you set up your log cabin and admire the mountain or anything like that. It says this is a valley. It was full of bones. Okay, now we're using the ominous language here again. A valley full of bones. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. Okay, these are bones that have been there a while. The sun has already scorched them. They're just laying. This is a valley of death. The valley of dry bones. God asked me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" I mean, these are dry bones. This place has been dead a long time. Can these bones live? I said, "Sovereign Lord, you alone know. You know the answer. I don't have the answer." Then he said to me, "Ezekiel, I want you to prophesy to these bones and say to them, 'Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord." So I prophesied as I was commanded. Ezekiel says, I did what God told me. I prophesied to a bunch of dry bones. Talk about a weird request from God. Talk about an odd thing. Prophesy to bones. And as I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound. Maybe it was bone hitting bone. Maybe it was the glory of God I'm not sure, but there was a rattling sound and the bones came together, bone to bone. I looked and tendons and flesh appeared on them and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. So just imagine this picture. This had to be something out of a science fiction movie. This was just, Ezekiel's watching this, and this valley of dry bones, these bones start rising up and coming together, and tendons are coming onto them, and then muscles are getting added, and flesh is coming onto them, and he's like, whoa, this is amazing. This is so cool. Then he said to me, God said, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, son of man, and say to it, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breath from the four winds, and breathe into these slain that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me. I know it's strange, guys. I know it's really bizarre. I know it's hard to believe, but I did what God told me to do, as odd as it was. And breath entered them. They came to life and stood up on their feet, a vast army. Then he said to me, son of man, let me interpret the vision for you. Let me help you understand what is happening here, what you have just witnessed, what you have just participated in. Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up, and our hope is gone. We are cut off. It's over for us. We're doomed. We're dead. We're like a valley of dry bones. There's no life left in us. There's no hope left in us. Therefore, prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says, my people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord when I open your graves and bring you up from them. I will put my spirit in you. God says, I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord. And that leads us to our big idea this morning. God brings new life to dead hopes and dreams. God brings new life to dead hopes and dreams. See, if you've been with us in this series, you understand that Ezekiel was typically prophesying a lot of bad news to the people. He was telling them, these people in exile who had been shipped out of their homeland because the people had been disobedient to God, they were facing the consequences of their actions. God had removed his blessing from them. They'd been shipped into exile, yet they'd been holding out hope that the people left in Jerusalem, at least those people, they would still at least get God's blessing. They would still have a remnant there who, where everything was going to go okay for them. They were trying to put those rose-colored glasses on, even in the midst of their exile, and God said, even they're going to get wiped out. Jerusalem's going to be overrun. Because you guys haven't followed me. You haven't obeyed me. And it was just bad news, bad news, bad news. And then the word came that, yes, Jerusalem was overrun, and the people were like, our last hope is dashed. We feel like we've fallen into the pit of despair. We're here till we die or they kill us. That's how the people felt. Their hopes and dreams are dashed. And you got to understand, for God's people, their national identity was tied to Jerusalem and the land there. That was the land God had promised them. That was the land God had given them. Their whole identity was wrapped up in being there. All their hopes and dreams were attached to that place. And it was gone. And they felt hopeless. They were in despair. They were depressed. No amount of Prozac was going to fix their trouble. And God, into the midst of those circumstances, says, I'm the God who brings new life to dead hopes and dreams. I do that. I'm going to restore you. I'm going to bring my people back to their land. I'm going to put a new spirit in them. Now, if we're going to understand how this works, we got to start with the bad news part first, right? The good news is good news because it follows up on the bad news. The bad news is our sin does lead to despair and death. That's the bad news here. The people did experience the consequences of their actions. To put it in another biblical way, you reap what you sow. They sowed all kind of trouble for themselves, and that's what they had to reap. And let's face it, we often experience difficulty in our lives not just because of our own sin, but because of other people's sin too, don't we? Right? Someone drinks and drives, and they hit someone who's an innocent bystander on the road. If I yell at my children, they experience the consequences of me yelling and losing my temper, right? Other people sin, and it has an impact on us. So whether it's my own sin or someone else's sin, sin leads to despair and death. That's the way it works. Scripture goes so far as to say, for the wages of sin is death. What people earn for their sin is death. And God's people learned that the hard way. But the good news is God knows and God cares. God knows and God cares. I like the way the vision begins in Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel writes, God led me back and forth among the bones, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley. I mean, God is just showing Ezekiel, look at all the destruction. This is all a result of sin. All this death. But you know what? There's hope in that, even in that. Because what did God do? He took Ezekiel there. He showed it to Ezekiel. Why? Because God cares. God cares. God doesn't turn a blind eye to it. He knows what's happening. And he really cares about it. He cares about us. Verse 11 explained it. Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up and our hope is gone. We're cut off. God knows how they're feeling, and God cares about how they're feeling. And God offers new hope out of despair. Let me tell you something. When we're in those times of deep sadness, deep regret, great difficulty, God knows and he cares. Sometimes it's because of what someone else has done, mistakes other people have made, and we feel like we're just caught in the crossfire. We're innocent bystanders, and we're like, why, Lord? God knows and he cares. Sometimes it's a result of what we've done, that we've blown it, we've screwed up, we've made the mistakes, and God knows and he still cares. He knows and he still cares. Something else we need to understand about this whole thing of God giving hope back. We need to know that God is the sovereign Lord. I don't know if you picked up on it, but that expression is repeated in this passage multiple times. Sovereign Lord, sovereign Lord, sovereign Lord. What does that mean? It means God is the ultimate authority on this planet. God is the one who's ultimately in control. God is the one who has the ability to make things right and ultimately will. He is the sovereign Lord. That's what he was showing us in verses 3 through 10 as he resurrects those bones. He's sovereign. He can do that. I can't do that. You can't do that. God can do that. He's sovereign. He's the master. He's the one. Verses 12 to 13 of Ezekiel 37 said, this is what the sovereign Lord says. O my people, I'm going to open up your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord. You'll know that I'm the sovereign God. When I open your graves and bring you up from them, I will put my spirit in you and you will live. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken. God says, you're going to know that I'm the sovereign Lord. I'm the one. And here's what's really good news about that. Obeying God is never pointless. Let me say that again. Obeying God is never pointless. Now, God may ask you to do some things that you're wondering if they're pointless. You may do some things for God and feel like, oh man, that was pointless. But obeying God is never pointless. Listen, Ezekiel had to speak to dry bones. Come on, that's really weird, isn't it? Come on now. Ezekiel, I want you to speak to these bones. I'm like thinking Ezekiel's like, is anyone watching? I mean, this is really, they're going to think I'm crazy. What? Ezekiel must have thought, come on, God, these bones, they're dead. There's another great scene in The Princess Bride where they rescue Wesley, our character who's in the pit of despair. They rescue him and they take him to a guy to try to resuscitate him. And the guy checks on him and says, wait, there's hope. He's only mostly dead. We're like, really? Okay. These bones are not mostly dead. They are dead. All right? And yet, even though they're totally bone dry dead, God says, I'm the God of hope. I'm still in control. So Ezekiel, obey me. Obey me. Obeying me is never pointless. Why is obeying God never pointless? Because God can do the impossible. But God, if I do what you tell me, how do I know I'm going to get what I want? How do I know that things are going to work out for me? God, if I do it your way, I don't see how this ends well. God says, I'm sovereign. Trust me. Your obedience for me is never pointless. It's never pointless. Because God can do the impossible. There's a little passage here in Luke chapter 5. Early in Jesus' ministry, he's still calling his disciples to follow him. And Jesus is speaking to the people. Simon, who becomes Peter, and some of the other disciples are cleaning their nets. By the way, if they're cleaning their nets, what does that mean? They're done fishing. Okay, they're fishermen. They're cleaning their nets. They're done. Okay, so that's the context. They've been fishing probably all night. Now they're done. Everybody say they're done. They're done. They're cleaning their nets. They're listening to Jesus teach. So he's teaching the people. When he's finished speaking, he says to Simon, hey, fisherman, I want you to put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. Really, God? In this case, I don't even know if Peter gets that Jesus is God yet. He's like, seriously? The teacher is going to tell me how to fish. I fished all night, didn't catch a thing. We're cleaning our nets, and you want me to go back out? I am bone tired. And frankly, hungry. And I really don't want to push out into deep water. Simon answered, Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I'll let down the nets. This is, you see, this is what we call reluctant obedience, right? He's not like, all right, let's do it, Jesus. Sure, this sounds like a good time. He's like, you have got to be kidding me. I can just imagine him looking over at John and rolling his eyes. Kind of like your teenagers when you ask them to, never mind. So he's like, really? Jesus is that, we'll humor the guy. All right, look. So they go, he thinks he knows about fishing. When they had done so, let me just tell you, some people ask, Pastor Zeke, you seem like you like to have fun on Sunday morning, and I'm like, yeah, we really do, because I really believe that God likes to have fun. He has a sense of humor. I mean, just look at stories like this. Peter's like, we're going to go out there fishing, sure, whatever, we haven't caught anything. When they had done so, they could have caught some fish. Wouldn't that have been nice? They catch a few fish, now they get to eat, everyone's happy. No, that's not what happens. They catch such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. It's like Jesus going, oh, you want to be skeptical of me? You want to doubt that you should do what I tell you to do? Watch this. Their nets begin to break, so they signal to their partners in the other boat, come and help them. And they come and fill both boats so full that, we miss this, I think, usually when we read it. They began to sink. Where did they go? They're out in the, we're in the deep water. It's not like they're in the shallow end. Okay, that's real funny, Jesus, our boats are, they're in the deep water and their boats begin to sink. Oh, we got so many fish. Well, don't put all the fish in the boat. Hang on here. Well, we don't want to sink out here. I just love it. I think Jesus has a great sense of humor. Yet you're going to doubt me. Go out in the deep water and watch this. See, sometimes when we're in deep water in life, we don't understand that God's at work. Sometimes we're out in the deep water, and we're out in the deep water because we did what God told us to do. And we're like, wait, God, I did what you told me to do, and now I'm like stuck in the deep water, and the boat's starting to sink. What? And God's like, yeah, I'm in control. You keep obeying me. I got you. I got this. I got this. Love it. I wish I'd never experienced futility and that I could always experience abundance. When the fishermen were out that night, they experienced futility. They fished and fished, worked as hard as they could and caught nothing. And I wish I didn't have to experience that. I wish I could just experience abundance. And if I have to experience futility, then I wish God would always turn my futility into abundance. Wouldn't that be nice? But God is sovereign. So I have to trust him to know when it's best for him to turn futility into abundance. And then I can be grateful when he does. See, this isn't a promise that every time I go fishing and have a bad night, that the next morning I should go out to the deep water and I'm going to catch a big haul. It's not a promise for that. But it's Jesus giving hope to say, when things feel futile for you, don't give up. I'm still near. I can turn your futility into abundance. It's not a promise that I'm going to do it every time. It's not a guarantee that you're going to be successful all the time. But you should always have your hope in me, because I can turn futility into abundance and be grateful when I do. Third thing I want us to talk about is where God's Spirit is present, there is life. It's interesting to me that when God gives Ezekiel those instructions and he prophesies to those bones, there's two parts. Did you pick up on that? It's a little weird. There's two parts. He prophesies to the dry bones, and then they start to come together, and the leg bone connects to the hip bone, You know, some of you know that old song, right? All those pieces start coming together, and the muscle comes, and the tendons, and the flesh, but they're not alive yet. Did you pick up on that? Then the breath has to come in. And I think that's a connection back to Genesis 2:7, when God creates mankind. He breathes his spirit into humanity, and it comes to life. God's Spirit. And we see that with this vision of the dry bones. The pieces come together, but they're not alive till the breath comes into them. Until God's Spirit enables them to be alive. That breath is God's Spirit. And it's God who breathes life into our hopes and dreams. It's God who has to breathe life to resurrect our hopes and our dreams and our purpose. There's that verse from 2:7, how God formed us from the dust of the ground and breathed the breath of life. God still breathes his Spirit to give new life. Joel 2:25 is a neat time. It's a similar situation. The people have experienced difficulty. The locusts have eaten away at their crops, and it's been tough times. It's been difficult times. And the prophet Joel says, from God says, I will repay you for the years the locusts have eaten. The great locust and the young locust. The other locust and the locust swarm. That's a lot of locusts. And that represents a lot of different kinds of difficulty. Sometimes my difficulty feels like it comes from something great. Sometimes it feels like it comes from something new. Sometimes it's totally undescribable. Sometimes it's just like a swarm of difficulties come in my life. And God says, I'll repay you for the years the locusts have eaten. I can bring new life. You don't think it's possible. You doubt. You wonder what's happening. But I can resurrect your hopes and dreams. As we said last week, God is in the restoration business. So what is the pit of despair? For Ezekiel and his people, it's their exile. That's their pit of despair. In Joseph's day, in Genesis 39 and 40, his pit of despair is a prison cell that he's been thrown into because, get this, because he did the right thing instead of the easy wrong thing. He did the hard right instead of the easy wrong. Instead of letting himself be seduced by Potiphar's wife, he said, no, I can't do that. That's not right. And then Potiphar's wife turns on him, and Potiphar throws him in prison when he did the right thing. He didn't even mess around with her. He did the right thing. And he ends up rotting in a prison cell. And while he's there, he interprets dreams. And it's like, oh yeah, I interpreted your dreams. And one of the guys whose dream he interprets gets freed. All the guy has to do now is tell the people what Joseph did, and maybe Joseph will get out. And the guy forgets. It's like the pit of despair for Joseph. God, what are you doing here? I obey you, and now I'm spending not days, not months, but years in prison. The years the locusts have eaten. Rotting in a prison cell. It's not his fault. God, where are you? God, what have you done? Why are you leaving me here? I don't understand, God. What's happening? I'm in the pit of despair. Where are you? God says, I'm here. Keep obeying me. Your obedience is never pointless. See, when Joseph's in the pit of despair, he doesn't know the end of the story. He just knows he's in a pit, and it's not his fault, and life isn't fair. You ever felt that way? And then Pharaoh has a dream. And someone goes, oh yeah, there's this guy in prison who can interpret it. And just to fast forward, Joseph ends up second in command of all of Egypt. Talk about having the years restored that the locusts have eaten. But Joseph didn't know that while he was in prison. He didn't know that he was going to become Pharaoh's right-hand man, Secretary of Interior, helping run the whole show. He didn't know that. He was just in the pit of despair. He felt like he was mostly dead. But God is sovereign. Someone else's sin led Joseph to be in the pit of despair. But Joseph had to trust God that even though he was unfairly in the pit of despair, he knew that God was sovereign and he was going to be obedient anyway. And then God raised him to new hopes and dreams and gave him back the years the locusts had eaten. The pit of despair. It's the disciples on the Saturday of despair. You know which Saturday I mean? There's Friday where Jesus is crucified. There's awesome Easter Sunday that we're going to celebrate in a few weeks. But then there's that Saturday of despair. All the hopes and dreams of the disciples have been dashed. They're just rotting in an upper room going, have we wasted these years? Did we follow Jesus for nothing? Was it pointless? Have all our hopes been disappointed? Have our dreams been dashed? Did we waste it? But Jesus said in John 11:25, I am the resurrection and the life. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He's the one who sacrificed himself for you and me so that our hopes and dreams could be resurrected, so that our purpose could be resurrected, so that we can have new life in him. I don't know, maybe some of you have been slugging through a pit of despair. Maybe you just feel like you get up in the morning and it's like, is it Monday? But you feel the same way on Tuesday, and you feel the same way on Friday. And maybe you even felt the same way this morning. You're just kind of slogging through a pit of despair. Take a deep breath this morning. God still loves you. He knows how you feel, and he cares about you. Take a deep breath and renew your hope in the one who raised Jesus from the dead. He's the one that brings new life to your hopes and dreams. Some of you have experienced some dashed hopes and dreams because of your own sin. You've done some things that you wish you could take back. You've said some things that you wish you could unsay. And even though life doesn't work quite that way, Jesus forgives us of our sin. And he says, I'm not going to hold that against you. You don't need to carry around the burden of that regret with you for the rest of your life, because I sent my son Jesus to die for you. He paid the price for that. He took the punishment for that. Stop punishing yourself over and over again. I've got new hopes and dreams for you. I'm going to replace those other ones with my hopes and dreams for you, because mine are better than yours anyway. I'm the sovereign Lord. Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. God's Son gave his life that you might live and breathe for him. And you know what's amazing to me? God can use you and me to bring new hopes and dreams to others, to spread the word that God is the one who gives new life. We get to be a part of that. Peter, the one who was like, yeah, I'm not putting down that boat. Really, okay, I'll do it, Jesus. He became someone who was a leader of God's people, spreading the good news. And Ezekiel got to prophesy of hope. We're going to talk about more of the good news that he got to prophesy next week. And Joseph got to save thousands upon thousands of people by helping Pharaoh thwart the effects of a catastrophic famine in the land. And God says, I've got hopes and dreams for you. Follow me. Trust me. Obeying me is never pointless. I can do the impossible. Because God brings new life to dead hopes and dreams. I want to lead us in prayer while the rest of the worship team comes up. And if you've been struggling with your hopes and dreams this morning, this is a chance for you to tell Jesus. You're going to trust him as your sovereign Lord. He's going to be with you. Let's pray together.